Update. 3 members of the U.S. House of Representatives have introduced a resolution seeking to end President Donald Trump's national emergency declaration that imposes tariffs of up to 50% on imports from India, arguing that the measures are illegal and harmful to the American workers, consumers, and the U.S.-India relations. Representatives Deborah Ross, Mark Weasley, and Raja Krishnamurthy have introduced the resolution in a move to seek the termination of the national emergency used by U.S. President Donald Trump to justify the tariffs, a move they say would help restore Congress's constitutional authority over trade. The push to end the India tariffs is part of a broader effort by the congressional Democrats to reassert Congress's constitutional role in the trade policy and prevent the president from using emergency powers to unilaterally impose what they view as misguided trade actions. Let's open up this discussion. On the show with me is Elizabeth Loris. She is the Senior Adjunct Fellow at Pacific Forum. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for joining me and speaking to us on NewsX. And of course, in terms of the support that India is gathering from a number of congressmen, the latest are these 3 Democrats who have raised this issue, talking about how the 50% tariffs on Indian goods and services are causing strife in their constituencies, in their regions, in their areas of governance. How badly is the American economy impacted because of the tariffs?
Overall, okay, so, President Trump imposed tariffs pretty much worldwide, right? Not just, of course, on India. Overall, we have seen the tariffs contribute to the inflation problem, the inflation on goods, the price of goods in the United States. The Fed recently, though, came out in their most recent meeting and said that though the inflation is having an impact, it is rather temporary, at the most. And so there's a possibility that because a lot of retailers, manufacturers essentially have sucked up, the increase in the cost, that it hasn't been passed to the American consumer as much as you might think. Regarding the Indian tariffs, 50% on Indian goods is very high, but also President Trump imposed an additional 25% because of India's purchases of Russian oil. And that apparently is the one that the Indian government wants the U.S. to remove first.
Okay, I do want to speak about this flurry of activity that has taken place in just a period of 7 days, the week that has passed by. There has been a U.S. diplomat, the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Alison Hooker, who was here in India, in Delhi. There was the Deputy U.S. Trade Representative, the new appointee, Rick Switzer, who was also over here. There were Foreign Office consultations that took place, spanning 2 days. A number of U.S. lawmakers, including the 3 we are talking about, who have extended support. And meanwhile, also the U.S. businesses, Amazon and Microsoft in particular, who have pledged to extend $50 billion worth of investment into India. And if sources are to be believed, officials have been talking, and there are murmurs happening that there is a final deal that has been presented by India to the United States of America, because the primary key priority for India right now is for US to withdraw those additional 25% tariffs on the oil purchased from Russia. There have been at this point in time concessions, it is being believed, that are being handed over by India to America, talking about walnuts, almonds, industrial goods, even luxury motorcycles. So these negotiations are carrying on, and we only saw 2 days ago US President Donald Trump held a phone call with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, in wake of these activities that are taking place, these engagements happening, how soon do you think there could be a bilateral trade agreement signed? But do you think before the bilateral trade agreement is signed, there is quite the possibility that those additional 25% tariffs are revoked by America?
Yeah, obviously, the Indian relationship is very important to the United States. And the tariffs, I have not seen actually the details of a, trade, agreement with India. And so I cannot comment, how quickly those tariffs might be lifted. However, the flurry of activity between the two sides, indicates that the talks are robust. I'm sure it's not lost on Washington that Prime Minister, Modi recently met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Modi has very good relations with China. And so the United States does not want to risk or upend the very good relationship we had with India. And so that might spur Washington to perhaps be a bit more, accommodating and remove the tariffs with a reasonable amount of time. Trade negotiations do take a long time. However, we do see that the Trump administration can move very quickly on imposing tariffs as well as lifting them.
Right, absolutely. And talking about India-US relations, it's important to know that skilled labor in United States of America is very essential, especially when we talk about medicine, when we talk about technology, when we talk about these IT industries that are flourishing in America, which have strong Indian skilled labor working at important positions. We have seen visa rules tighten. In fact, in just the last week, there has been an announcement that has been made by the American administration that the H-1B visa which lasted 5 years is going to only be for 18 months. Not just that, there have been visa tightening regulation with regards to the vetting of social media of social media accounts of applicants who are applying for various kinds of visas in America. Birth tourism is something that is being scrutinized and looked upon by the United States Embassy when they are sifting through visa applications. Do you think this is going to be a prickly point when the bilateral trade agreement negotiations are continuing between both countries, or this is something that India has taken in its stead?
Well, it certainly is a prickly point because the American public is somewhat divided on the view of H-1B visas. There are a lot of Americans who voted for President Trump who believe that H-1B visas, number one, are actually abusive and exploitative of foreign labor. And there also is the perception that they take, American jobs. On the other hand, American businesses and academia love H-1B visas because they do get labor less expensive than American labor. And so this is not just an economic issue, a financial issue. It definitely is a political issue. And there is a lot of noise on social media about this. And so there is a really big tug of war, and I don't see resolution on that very quickly. Getting back very quickly to the tariffs, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments that the tariffs violate the International Emergency, Powers Act. So that might actually be resolved quicker because of the Supreme Court rather than the H-1B visa, which is a political hot potato.
Right. And also, I do want to get your views on the closeness of ties between US President Donald Trump and his administration and the Pakistani leadership. Especially, this comes in wake of the big announcement, the tech upgrade for the Pakistan F-16s that has just been announced to the tune of $686 million. There has been a $1.25 billion support for mining in Balochistan. This has been an announcement that was made only last week. And also talking about the Pax Silica, where India is not included. There are countries including Singapore, Korea, Netherlands, UK, Israel, UAE, Australia, but India does not find a mention. How do you expect India to deal with United States when it is hedging its bets by cozying up to Pakistan and not including India in these important referendums and resolutions that it has decided to pass?
Well, I mean, there's a possibility, of course, that, India will become a little, closer, hedge its bets, but becoming a little closer to China and to Russia. Of course, historically, India gets most of its arms from Russia. During the Cold War, of course, Pakistan was and still is a non-treaty security ally, right? So the United States does have that history of selling arms to Pakistan while Russia was selling to India. And, about maybe 10 years ago, we saw, particularly when the US was involved in Afghanistan, we saw things start to shift. The US to have warmer security relations with India and isolating Pakistan a bit more. Now we seem to be coming back full circle to almost the Cold War, where the United States is back to wanting to have better relations with Pakistan. But that's certainly because of the security calculus. And I think it has to do, with China's expansion, but also perhaps a response to India being very close to Putin. At least in the media, it was portrayed that way in America.
Right, absolutely. Elizabeth Laris, it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you very much for joining me on NewsX. Let me also get in other guests. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, all the points that I have pointed, especially in wake of the developments that have taken place in the last week and which have culminated with US President Donald Trump giving a phone call to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There has been a cordial exchange of conversation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Donald Trump on the efforts that he's putting in negotiating peace between Ukraine and Russia. But so far, no confirmation of US President Donald Trump being invited to India.
Yeah, I think those discussions will take place through diplomatic channels. So as and when it happens, we will come to know about it. Donald Trump himself has said that he'll be visiting India early next year. So we'll really have to wait and see. These things are never announced before a final decision is taken. So I don't think we should be reading too much into it. We, of course, had expected that the Quad meeting will take place in India in November this year. November has come and gone. Obviously, we see that Mr. Trump is not interested so much in the Quad as he was when he had sort of, revived it in November of 2017. And his national security strategy that has been issued on the 4th of December brings that out very clearly. If you permit, Megha, let me respond. Although your earlier guest is no longer on the line, I would have really appreciated if you had had a debate because, she's made some very, to put it mildly, uninformed points. Number one, she says that Mr. Trump has put tariffs on around the world, without mentioning that the tariffs on India are the highest that he has put on the world, on any other country in the world except for Brazil. And the reasons for putting this 50% tariffs on Brazil are quite unrelated to trade. As far as putting this 25%, she justified it, saying that, it is because India is importing oil from Russia. India is not the only country. India is not the largest importer of oil from Russia. So, it is totally unfair and very discriminatory what America has done, what Mr. Trump has done. Thirdly, she says India has excellent relations with China. I don't know where she's got that information from. Meaning she's not aware that, we've had this fight, this conflict, this confrontation 5 years ago. 20 of our soldiers died. The first time after 50 years that this sort of a thing has happened. Our relationship is barely limping back to normal. And she says we have a good relation. It's very ill-informed. And she says that, from the media we find that Mr. Modi is very close to Putin. Now, meaning, are you going to make your policies on the basis of what you see in the media? I mean, this is, I would have really appreciated I can see my good friend Dr. Sharad Kohli is also here, and we could have had a good, engaging discussion if you had put all of us, and we could have had a real debate on this particular issue. But she's
Yes.
made some very uninformed
Yes,
comments,
they
which
were.
I think need to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, you're right. You're right in mentioning about Trump's tariff that are discriminatory against India. Of course, talking about our difficult relationship that we have had with China, which at this point of time is thawing gradually in terms of there has been a solution that is being looked upon between India and China when it comes to the line of actual control, the patrolling that has commenced in certain regions, the conflict regions, the regions that at one point of time, 5 years ago, as you rightly mentioned, were the points of conflict. I am going to bring in Sharad Kohli also into the conversation. And Sharad, while we at this point of time are very heavily pushing United States of America to reduce those additional 25% tariffs because of India importing oil from Russia, it is the truth that India's oil purchases from Russia have reduced considerably. There are significant reductions in our oil purchases. And I would go out on a limb and say that the bilateral trade agreement hinges on the fact that India hedges its bets and diversifies its oil purchases and away from Russia.
Good evening, Megha, to you, NewsX viewers, and Ambassador Sajanhar. I completely agree with the ambassador that, the learned lady whom you called was probably not just, misinformed, she ill-informed, but misinformed. I mean, she was giving incorrect facts, which do not reconcile with the truth on the ground. It was totally different. I think I could see some filters in what she was speaking, probably being afraid of Trump administration taking some action if she speaks, because what Trump administration doing right now is beyond comprehension. And as far as the tariffs are concerned and the Russian oil purchase are concerned, well, America is also buying energy, so is Europe. So from deep inside, I really do not feel that the reason for additional 25% tariff is the Russian oil purchase, because that doesn't seem to be the reason. Because if that was the reason, then there are bigger buyers of Russian oil who are being discriminated, who are being given concessions. So it's a tariff of convenience. It's not Russian oil. We've seen that now. I mean, he's using tariff as a tool, as a weapon to misfire, I was yesterday on your channel, another channel, I was saying there was a meme going on social media that one of the cooks in the White House forgot to put salt in some dish that he prepared. And he was called and he was threatened with tariffs, that I'm going to impose tariff on you if you don't start cooking properly. So you can't use tariff for everything. Tariff is not the answer to everything. He's trying to stop wars by tariff. What wars? Look at Rwanda and Congo. They're back fighting. Look at Thailand and Cambodia. They are back into fight. All these peace deals were claimed to be Nobel Prize winners. These deals were supposed to be making him eligible for a Nobel Peace Prize. All the deals have gone out of the window. So whatever that is being done, and the worst is that they are backfiring, because the American economy, after these tariffs, on ground report says that inflation is shooting up in America. And it was Jerome Powell was pressurized to reduce the Fed rates by 25 basis points. His term is ending in May. So while going, he said, let me not have a sour relationship with President Trump. Let me do just what he says. Which principle of economics makes you reduce the rates when your inflation is high? This defies the principle of economics. You're not supposed to be reducing the rates when your inflation is high. The inflation is actually high. Even the growth rate of America, Mega, which is being claimed at 1.8% at this point of time. My own economic analysis and my team's research says that America is technically into recession. It is because of the midterm 2026 polls that certain numbers are being presented. The American stock markets, there is a lobby in America who's artificially pumping money into stock markets. And you see the Dow Jones, the S&P, and the NASDAQ uh, making new records. They are surging like anything. So this is defying gravity, because on one side, you see, stock markets are, they may not necessarily follow the economy in the short term, but technically the stock market should be following the fundamentals of the economy. If your economy is going in one direction, stock market going in the other direction, I think it becomes an open secret that this is being manipulated. These markets are being manipulated to present a picture that, look, my
Okay.
policies or our policies are doing so well that our stock markets are booming, and the companies are doing this and that, and there's an artificial intelligence bubble building up there. There's a stock market bubble building there. People are losing jobs. Inflation is there on the ground. No new investment is coming. South Korea, Megha, pardon me for saying this, South Korea had committed 200 billion. He had forced them to that they will have to put in $200 billion into the American economy to win that trade deal. South Korea has refused now. European Union has refused to pump in money because they say we can't pump in cash. This is running a country. This is not running business. You can't run a country the way you run your company. And there is a lot of diplomacy which goes in running the country. I don't think a country can be run like a corporate body. I think tariff is everything for him.
Okay.
I don't think that is going to work out in the long run.
Okay. Coming back to you, Ambassador Sajjanad, about you were speaking about the U.S. national security strategy, that document that was released earlier this month, and India is spoken about only in the context of Quad, of how United States wants countries aligned with its objective of fighting the long-term war with China in the Indo-Pacific. The fact that we have not seen Quad happen, the Quad Leaders Summit happen in November as it was scheduled, and it is being heavily speculated that because of the difficult trade relations between India and United States of America, this could not materialize. US President Donald Trump would not have come to India. Any likelihood that this were to happen sometime in the near future in 2026? And more importantly, while we may not align on a number of issues, that is independent of our Indo-Pacific policy against China.
Yeah, let me put it to two ways. Of course, we would very much hope that the Quad summit takes place, because it was to take place in 2025. For the last 4 years, since 2021, every year there have been summits that have been held. Last year, India was to host it, but then we were requested by the United States, by President Joe Biden, that he would like to host it because it would not have been possible for him to visit India in the second half of last year because the elections were going on. So it was not possible for him to come. So India very graciously acceded to that request that fine, we will do it next year. But we've seen, we had hopes because the first meeting during Trump's presidency, he was sworn in on the 20th of January, 21st January, we had the first meeting of the Quad foreign ministers. Recently, we've had another meeting of the Quad foreign ministers. So that gives me hope. And I think it is both for substantive issue. There are very important decisions that were being taken, that have been taken in the Quad, and they need to be taken forward. Also, I think in terms of Megha, this signaling that it sends, the messaging that it sends to those who are having an assertive and an aggressive stance as far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned. That having been said, what you also referred to the national security strategy earlier this month that has been announced. Now, in that, China is not really portrayed as an adversary. It's not really portrayed as a hostile power against whom, the United States is going to be taking action. You would remember that in 2017, when the national security strategy in the first Trump administration had come, it was stated that, China was a systemic threat, which had the capacity, the will, and the intention to challenge America's hegemony and America's preeminent position in the world. This time, nothing of that sort has been mentioned. What has been mentioned as far as China is concerned is that it is an economic rival. And he has been, the national security strategy speaks about hemispheric security. That means the United States position would be to ensure its hegemony, its predominance, and its overpowering influence only in the Western hemisphere. And that is what has been mentioned, that in addition to the Monroe Doctrine that was stated in
Yes.
1823 by President Monroe at that time, there would be a Trump corollary to that, so that no other power will be able to go against what the United States wants in the Western Hemisphere. As far as Indo-Pacific is concerned, of course, you need peace, security, you need what we would have in terms of free and open Indo-Pacific, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights, because that is a very important trading route also. So I think Mr. Trump is really looking at the Indo-Pacific and security in Indo-Pacific from the economic terms and
Right.
not so much from strategic security terms and as a pushback against China. That is why you would have seen the formulation also in the NSS on Taiwan is somewhat different. So I think, coming back to the question, we would definitely hope, if only on trade our discussions are not going forward as we would like them to be, hopefully they will come on track. But on many other issues, as you mentioned yourself, that we had the visit of Alison Hooker here. We have extended the defense agreement for next 10 years. There have been defense exercises. There have been so many exchange of delegations and visits. So that has been going on. The only ripple and the wrinkle that has taken place as far as our bilateral relations are concerned is trade, and that due to Mr. Trump, because he seems to be having a personal pique that
Yeah.
India
Okay.
has not agreed to, what his statement is, that he settled the conflict between India and Pakistan.
Okay. Also, the U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Green has also 2 days ago made a comment, and what he has said is that while India is a difficult nut to crack, India has offered the best ever deal up until now. Any inclination towards an early signing of the bilateral trade agreement, Dr. Sharad Kohli, in wake of, like I said, so many developments taking place, engagements are taking place. There has been a shift in tone and tenor of US President Donald Trump, the way he perceives India with regards to trade. Do you think there could be an early conclusion of the trade deal?
Anybody's guess. Megha is the most unpredictable person in the world, and the two guys, they have concluded their efforts. They have done their duty, but it's on the Bada Sahab, it's on the big boss to really decide, because he can decide either way. There's a saying in Hindi: you don't know oot kis karwat baithega. You don't know what he's going to decide. He's highly unpredictable. Something in the evening, something else in the afternoon, something else the next morning. I would rather not like to make speculations. That the taste of the pudding isn't eating it. So unless it happens, I think we've had 6 rounds, and on every round we have been talking about that maybe, we were very optimistic. I would still like to remain optimistic. It's probably now going to happen. But then, when something happens again and again, you tend to lose your optimism. So I would like to wait for this pudding to come to my tongue before I give you the taste.
Okay.
Let's see what the big boss decides.
Right, but it's also interesting because during Russia President Vladimir Putin's visit over here, while the president was very optimistic, said that Russia is ready to provide all of India's energy needs, whether it is oil or gas or petrochemicals. There was no comment that was made by the Indian Prime Minister during his press speech right after their bilateral meeting, and there has been no comment made by US President Donald Trump while Putin was on his visit to India. So these are interesting developments. We'll keep a close eye on engagements that are taking place between India and United States of America. Of course, there are issues with regards to trade, there are issues with regards to India allying up with United States of America when it comes to the Indo-Pacific, working on Quad, but also a very concerning issue for Indian citizens who are looking to find jobs and live in America, because those visa regulations are becoming tighter, making it more difficult for skilled labor in India and students in India to go and work and build the America dream in United States. With that, we come to the wrap of this telecast of NewsX. Thanks for watching.